What's up, pod people, and welcome to the Wheel of Time Pod-Thru. I'm Teresa.
And I'm Tim.
And together, we're going to walk through Robert Jordan's Wheel of Time book series. How you doing, Tim?
I'm doing okay. It's been an interesting week. How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm trying to adjust to a new pair of glasses, and it is not easy.
No, you've been having some interesting times.
Yeah. But anyway, before we get started, we just want to remind you that this is a reread. We assume that you've read the entire series, so there will be spoilers. You have been warned. All right, Tim, what are we going to be doing in today's episode?
Today we'll be discussing chapters 8 and 9 of the Dragon Reborn, where we get to the first village and Perrin encounters a glimpse of the future he fears. Chapter 8 is called Jarra, and the icon is the wolf.
Here is a not-so-quick summary to act as a reminder for those of you who are not reading along with us. This was a surprisingly pivotal chapter, so it's going to be a long one. Grab a snack and settle in. We enter the small village of Jarra, where signs of recent celebration litter the empty village green. There is a lone man sweeping the front steps of the village's only inn. Perrin catches a whiff of something vile and wrong that passed through, but he can't place it. The man is startled by Perrin's yellow eyes, and even more so at the sight of Loyal, but he recovers enough to welcome them and introduce himself as Simeon. Moraine asks if they had a recent wedding, and Simeon tells her that they had a plague of weddings over the last 2 days. There isn't a single woman old enough to marry left in the whole village, and they've been having celebrations day and night. Perrin starts to ask about Rand, but Moraine interrupts him, asking Simeon for rooms. Loyal's presence is quite the spectacle to the townsfolk in the common room, who didn't realize Ogiers were more than just children's tales. Our group overhears the innkeeper make a quip about white cloaks, and Moraine asks Simeon about it. He tells them that about 20 white cloaks came through Jarra, nothing out of the ordinary, until suddenly 3 of them decided they didn't want to be children of the light anymore and just rode away. One decided to hunt for the Horn of Valair. Another rode off to Almouth Plain to hunt the dragon. Some of the remaining white cloaks started harassing women on the street and grabbing them, with the rest yelling at them to stop. They started fighting amongst themselves, and a few went mad and started raving that Jarra was full of dark friends and tried to burn the village down. The white cloaks that hadn't lost it tied the others up and rode back to Amadesia. While the news of multiple weddings and whacked-out white cloaks was interesting, Perrin was antsy to hear if Rand had passed through. When Simeon showed him to his room, he asked about it. Simeon tells Perrin that he did see Rand. He played the flute for all the weddings. Simeon said that Rand was odd, saying strange things and laughing at nothing. He woke in the middle of the night yelling and left right away because he said someone was after him and he meant to kill him. Loyal assures Simeon that Rand is a friend and he didn't mean them. Simeon said that he thinks Rand is sick in the head, and Perrin tells him that they're following Rand to try to help him. Excitedly, Simeon tells him that Rand went east and that he guessed Moraine was Aes Sedai, and can she help his brother Gnome? He was too afraid to ask her himself. Perrin promises to ask and leaves Simeon with Loyal. Perrin goes to Moraine's room and tells her that Simeon confirmed Rand had passed through. She and Lan are pissed that Perrin didn't keep his mouth shut like he'd been told. Moraine didn't need confirmation. Rand is the strongest Ta'veren that there ever was, and the weddings and crazy white cloaks were enough evidence of his passing. They can expect to find similar events left in his wake. They argue a little because that's what Perrin and Moraine do in this book. He tells her that Simeon knows she's Aes Sedai and about his request for healing. Moraine and Lan have a silent exchange about whether Simeon should be killed to silence him, and Moraine decides to let him live. But she impresses on Perrin that the next time may be different, so he needs to guard his tongue. They find Loyal lecturing Simeon about the steading and the great trees. Taking Perrin with her and leaving a reluctant Lan behind, Moraine tells Simeon to take her to his brother, and she will do what she can. Simeon leads them to a small shed behind the inn stable and removes the bar from the door. Inside, they find a crude cage of sorts, where the back of the shed had been barred off with slats of wood. There they find a wild-looking man with golden eyes. Simeon tells them that Gnome had been talking crazy for about a year, saying that he could talk to wolves. Then a few months ago, Simeon found him in this state. Perrin reaches out with his mind to try to connect with Gnome and instantly recoils. What he found were not really thoughts, just a chaotic jumble of desires and images, part memory, part yearning. But there was more wolf there than anything else. Moraine opens the lock to go into Gnome, and Simeon warns her that it's not safe. Gnome bit the local healer when she tried to help, and he killed a cow with his teeth. Perrin tells her Gnome is dangerous, and Moraine replies that all men are dangerous. Gnome bares his teeth and growls, but Moraine is the wolf whisperer in this scene and backs him into a corner until she could take his head in her hands. Gnome's snarls turn to whimpers as she delved him. She releases him and closes the door behind her as she goes, and Gnome hurled himself snarling against the wooden bars. He bit at them and battered them with his shoulders, trying to force his head between them, all the while snarling and snapping. Moraine tells Simeon that she can't help Gnome. There's nothing left that remembers being a man. Gnome is gone. He thanks her for trying, and she leaves. Perrin stays transfixed. He takes the lock back off the cage door, telling Simeon that he can't leave him locked up like that forever. You can't cage a wolf and expect it to be happy or to live long. He agrees, and Perrin opens the door. Gnome runs off into the night on all fours. They chat a little bit, and Simeon tells him that they moved Gnome to the cage to hide him from the White Cloaks. They mentioned a dark friend they were after named Perrin Ibarra, a blacksmith with yellow eyes who runs with wolves. But Simeon doesn't think a dark friend would care if his brother died in a cage. He figures that Moraine must have gotten to Perrin for healing before the wolf thing could set in too much, and offers to bring Perrin his meals in his room so Perrin doesn't have to go to the common room and have people stare at his eyes. The chapter ends with Perrin telling Simeon that he is a good man.
After traveling with Ingtar in the last book, where we are met with town after town that had been ravaged by Fane's Trollocs, and Perrin and Huron smelling vile things, the opening of this chapter always makes me think we're about to come across a grisly scene.
Yeah, definitely.
There's a single man sweeping with a broom, but the place looks like a party ended suddenly. A woman's scarf and a child's hat are abandoned, and I'm thinking to myself, who the hell's this guy with the broom, and what did he do to these people? So Perrin smells something, but can't figure out what it is. Mm-hmm. Perrin asks himself if it's possible that Rand has already gone mad and could be the source of the bad smell. Perrin is a thinker, and one issue with being a thinker is that you can get stuck in your head, overthinking things if you don't actually talk to somebody about them. They have been traveling for a couple days, and he has had a lot of time to brood.
Yeah. And what Perrin is smelling are the dark friend, or the dark hounds, right?
I believe so. Either dark hounds or possibly a gray man. I'm not sure. I think we run into dark hounds.
Both are chasing Rand.
Yeah, like Rand's got a lot of things after him right now.
Yeah. I'm gonna say it's the dark hounds.
You know, you're right, because we'll see Rand face him, I think, in the next chapter, face some dark hounds in the next chapter.
Yeah.
So you're probably right.
I'm pretty sure that's what he's smelling. Because don't they have like a sulfurous smell?
Yes, they do.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's what Perrin is smelling, but
okay.
I don't remember.
Yeah, rotten egg. Ugh.
Mm-hmm. I love the idea of a plague of weddings.
Right.
Like, my mental picture is a swarm of women in white dresses descending on the grain like locusts. Onlookers calling out desperately for anyone who knows Pachelbel's canon. The cooks furiously pumping out pigs and blankets. It's quite the image.
Pigs and blankets.
Yeah, everybody loves pigs and blankets.
You know what? You're right. Everybody does.
So I feel so bad for Loyal in this chapter. Simeon has to ask what he is, to which Loyal's like, I'm an Ogier, duh. Did you think I was a Trolloc? And Simeon continues to step in it, saying, of course not a Trolloc. He doesn't believe in children's tales, except Ogier are children's tales. Whoops. And then when he takes them to the innkeeper, he very loudly announces that Loyal's an Ogier, and the serving woman drops the mugs she's carrying. And they're going to their rooms, and they hear the innkeeper explaining about Ogier to someone who asks, what the hell was that? And getting all the information wrong.
Yeah.
You know, Loyal's head brushes the ceiling. None of the furniture fits him. It's blatantly obvious that he doesn't belong here.
Yeah.
You know? I think Jordan captures othering so well in regards to Loyal, you know? Like, we're used to reading about him by now. And all the characters we've been spending time with take his presence as a matter of course. Mm-hmm. But once he's out in the real world again, he's immediately insulted and shunted off to the side.
Yeah.
The villagers don't even realize how rude they're being, you know? Like, they simply have never come across an Ogier before, and they don't know how to handle it.
Right.
Perrin has a very similar struggle throughout the book with people reacting to his golden eyes, you know? Mm-hmm. And we'll see over and over again how this kind of stuff affects them both emotionally. This is something that happens all the time in real life. And it's definitely something to think about. Like, it's natural to be curious or even uncomfortable by someone who's very, very different than everyone else you've been exposed to.
Yeah.
And it's easy to give offense, even if you don't mean to.
Mm-hmm.
It's really important to recognize how our words and behavior can other or offend people and stop it. You know, like, no one likes feeling like a freak show. And being inclusive isn't actually that hard to do.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. You're absolutely right. Perrin has the cojones that only a young bull could have. He seriously looks Lan in the eye and basically tells him that it was a good thing that he disobeyed instructions. Not many people can get away with looking a warder in the face and admitting that they really don't care what the Aes Sedai told them to do. On the other hand, like Moiraine explains, it's a real quick way to get them all killed. So I'm conflicted. On the one hand, I want to high-five Perrin for giving the manipulative Moiraine the finger. On the other hand, things could get dangerous for them if the person following Rand finds out that they're also in pursuit. Jordan does a good job of pulling me back and forth on which side I am on here.
Do you mean as far as, like, opening his mouth and asking about Rand?
Yeah, as far as opening his mouth and asking about Rand, but, like, the defiance that he looks like he walks into that room with Lan and Moiraine and he's like, so I did it. What you gonna do about it? Mm-hmm. You know, like, he really has a devil-may-care attitude about having done it, which is cool. Great. You're finally, like, standing up for yourself. You're finding your place in the world. You're putting us in danger, too.
Yeah.
So I go back and forth on that a lot.
Yeah, that makes sense. Moiraine explains that the pattern shifts and shapes itself around Rand because he's so strongly Ta'veren. So the plague of weddings and the whacked out white cloaks are just a sample of what's to come. Rand leaves a trail of unexplained events in his wake, and they get more and more extreme as time goes on. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad, but something always happens when he's around.
Yeah. When Lan talks about how Hawkwing was so strongly Ta'veren, people could feel the pattern pull them when standing in his presence, this is a nice bit of foreshadowing. We'll see several times in the books that this happens for Rand. Mm-hmm. I'm with Moiraine. The talent is kind of vexing.
I think you mean plot convenient.
In essence, Ta'veren and the Wheels are basically the same thing in my mind. Both can be incredibly annoying at times.
Yeah.
Remember a couple episodes back where Lan was described as, this man tamed violence and death and kept them in his pocket, ready to be loosed in a heartbeat or embraced, should Moiraine give the word.
Uh-huh.
I flash back to this when Perrin tells Moiraine that Simeon knows she's an Aes Sedai. Moiraine and Lan share a moment of nonverbal communication, which ends with Moiraine saying, no, and Lan saying, as you wish, it's your decision. Lan is 100% ready to kill Simeon if Moiraine commands it, and is kind of expecting her to choose that option. I don't read any disappointment in his response, like he wants to do it, but he is letting her know that he's ready and willing to do so without hesitation. It's the kind of shorthand two people develop over years of working together. And I find it both 100% awesome that they work this well together, and 100% terrifying that it would be that easy for them to make someone disappear to protect their mission.
Yeah. So we have to talk about Gnome.
Oh, yeah.
But I don't really know where to start.
There's a lot.
Yeah. First off, this is a really great scene.
Yeah.
Emotionally compelling and extremely well done. But this encounter shapes Perrin's struggle with the wolves for the rest of the series.
Yes.
It's not until the very end of Towers of Midnight that this gets resolved. And to be honest, that kind of pisses me off. Perrin's big fear with the wolves is that he's going to be taken over and lose his humanity. He meets Gnome and thinks that his fears have been confirmed. And yes, this is exactly what could happen if he opens himself to the wolves. Moiraine says that there's nothing of the man left in him, nothing left to take the path back to what he was before. And that cements Perrin's fears in his mind, for the entire freaking series.
It's true.
It's not until Perrin meets Boundless, Gnome's wolf form, and realizes that he chose to become a wolf.
Yeah.
He wasn't taken over, that Perrin finally figures this stuff out. So all of the angst and the drama over the next 10 books is for nothing. I'm not bitter. No, not at all.
You're not. So you're going to tell us how you really feel then?
It's just so dumb. It's so dumb. Like, seriously. Ugh.
Yeah. Again.
Because, we said from the very beginning that this is the coolest freaking power ever.
Yep.
And Perrin just needs to snap out of it.
Yep.
But no, the entire freaking series, up until the very last damn book, Perrin is just, no, the wolves. Oh, no, the wolves. And, anger. I have anger.
Just a bit.
Also, this resolution kind of feels like a retcon. You know?
Yeah, a little bit.
I'm happy for Boundless and his freedom, and I think it's kind of beautiful in a sad kind of way that he chose to be a wolf because the world of men was pain and misery, and the wolf is peace to him.
Yeah.
But there's nothing in this chapter that hints at all that Simeon was angry and abusive to cause Gnome's need to become a wolf to escape the pain of his life.
Right.
Like, quite the opposite, actually. I mean, I know that abusers don't exactly advertise, but this seems to come out of nowhere, you know? Like, Simeon wants to protect Gnome from the White Cloaks, even after he shows that he's dangerous.
Right.
And he's trying to get Moraine to heal him, even though Simeon's afraid of her. He keeps Gnome locked up for his own protection, afraid that if he lets Gnome out, he'll die. But when Perrin explains that Gnome would be happier in the wild, Simeon does what he thinks is best for Gnome.
Right.
You know, like, I want to agree with Perrin that Simeon is a good man. So, like, while I'm happy that Boundless finally found peace, I don't get it or buy it. I mean, we needed to fix Perrin's issues before the last battle, and this was a good way to do it, I guess. But it was totally out of the blue. You know, like, it didn't make as much sense as Sanderson tried to lead us to believe. Like, what do you think?
I think this is. I don't subscribe to the camp where everyone says that Sanderson totally messed things up and Sanderson changed things for whatever. I'm not one of those people in those camps.
I like the last 3 books. Like, they're good.
But having said that, this is an example of why people do believe those things.
Yeah.
Like, this may have been Jordan's intent all along. Maybe Boundless's storyline somehow got lost and all of the other stuff that's going on got cut from something. So maybe we had more development from Boundless coming that would have made that make more sense. And maybe we find out more about how his family and how he was treated. But that doesn't happen. And to just have it plucked down as like in a convenient like explanation to resolve Perrin's angst. Mm-hmm. You're right. It did feel very much like a retcon.
And I feel like if he hadn't included Simeon in the flashbacks,
right?
And we're talking about the epilogue of Towers of Midnight,
right?
Where we find out about Boundless. Like if it had just been like his father who was abusive and terrible, and like maybe it seems to imply that maybe like his wife and child may have died, or he lost people,
right?
Because they're graves or something. If Simeon hadn't been included, then it would have been fine. It would have made perfect sense. But including Simeon
in the abusers
doesn't make sense because this person that we meet in this chapter does not have any signs at all.
Right. Because you're right. Abusers don't necessarily advertise.
No, abusers are actually very, very good at pretending to be great people. But
not to this level.
Yeah. And like the reason I'm saying that is because Simeon is really unassuming, you know, like he's fearful of Moraine. He's fearful of Loyal. Yes. Definitely. He is, right away he becomes sort of Perrin's man. Like as soon as Perrin offers to help him, he's happy to do whatever Perrin says and wants to please him. And, he obviously is really subservient to the innkeeper.
Yep.
Like, he doesn't show any signs.
Because there's always an element of narcissism to an abuser.
Or, like, you'll see a flash of anger or a tightening of the eyes or something to show that whatever's happening inside is not
What they're
matching.
displaying outside. Yeah.
And there's none of that there. And Jordan is really good at character development. That is one thing he's excellent at. So if that was the plan, I feel like Jordan would have planted something. So either because at this point Jordan still thought this was only going to be a 5 or 6 book series, he hadn't made plans for Boundless. Like Boundless came later. Or Boundless was a completely made up thing by Sanderson. Like, I don't know how much of Perrin's storyline Jordan left in his notes. I want to say I heard somewhere that he left Perrin pretty open-ended.
Yeah.
So I'm pretty sure this was mostly Sanderson's choice. And I don't think it's a bad choice. I think the idea of Boundless choosing to become a wolf because his life was too painful is actually really beautiful. And it's great. I'm angry it took so long to get there. But I do think it's a beautiful resolution. They just never should have included Simeon.
Right.
You know? If he had just left Simeon out, it would have made perfect sense and I would have no problem with it, except for the timing. But you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
I don't think it lines up. Like, it's not consistent with who we meet in this chapter.
I'm totally with you on that.
What do you guys think? Tweet us, let us know, email us. Tell us your opinions. We like the dialogue.
Do you think that Moraine and possibly the Blue Sisters as a whole have some kind of animal communication trick?
Mm-hmm.
Moraine is able to subdue Gnome until she exits the cage. And there are stories of Moraine doing things with ants and other creatures. And in the last chapter, she was really lucky at fishing.
Mm-hmm.
Also, she heals some of the wolves after the attack on the camp in the mountains. I'm going to go out on a limb and say that I think Moraine is able to connect with and possibly communicate with animals. Not to the same level that Perrin does with the wolves, but more like a kind of compulsion. What do you think?
Well, Moraine confirms at some point that one of the secret weaves the blues have is controlling insects. So that one is for sure.
Okay.
And as far as other animals, it's possible she's found a way to adapt the insect weave. Like the basic mechanics of the weave would probably be similar to the insect one, but just obviously more complicated when trying to control mammals. But we know that you can control humans with compulsion. So it's totally feasible that Moraine, who is decently powerful, could have worked out a weave that sort of meets in the middle of those two and can control animals. So I don't know if it's ever confirmed, but it would explain why she's able to affect Gnome the way she does. Because her presence should have had the opposite effect because dogs hate Aes Sedai.
Yes, they do.
If Gnome had turned into a bobcat, sure, fine, no problem. But the wolf should not have responded to her that way.
Interesting.
So, yeah, it's totally feasible.
All right.
And I could definitely see Moraine making her own stuff up.
Yeah, she's kind of tricksy that way.
She is tricksy.
Quote, "You cannot cage a wolf, Simeon, not and expect it to be happy or live long." Unquote. This is not just a great advice to Simeon in order to get him to let Gnome roam free with the wolves. It's also a really good summary of Perrin's struggle over the rest of the series. Perrin is never happy when he feels trapped or manipulated. For example, when Fael is taken, he feels very much trapped and helpless and trying to save her and kind of loses touch with himself for a while. But once he gets to a place where he is free to be himself and okay with who he is as a wolf brother, he is a much more happier person.
Mm-hmm.
Perrin, out of the 3 Two Rivers boys, is the most self-aware.
Mm-hmm.
When Simeon basically says that he knows Perrin is not a dark friend because no dark friend would have ever cared about Gnome, Perrin has a moment of regret. Quote, "He was shamed that he had ever compared the man to a frog." Unquote. It's a thought that he had earlier in a moment of frustration at a situation, and one he never said out loud. But he realizes that Simeon is a good man and feels bad for judging him so harshly in his mind. I don't think Matt or Rand would ever have been that quick to reflect on their actions towards other people. It was a nice touch that Simeon brings Perrin his meals in the privacy of his own room. But did you notice that when Perrin tells him that he's a good man, we get the line, Simeon looked so pleased that Perrin felt ashamed all over again? Perrin is already acting like a lord and does not even know it. He helped this man resolve a situation in his life, and the man is now happy to help Perrin however he can. Step 1 in building a kingdom, get minions. Perrin does not realize how good he is at this, without even trying.
Yeah.
And that wraps up Chapter 8. But before we get to Chapter 9, here's a quick word from our sponsors.
Today's episode of the Wheel of Time Pod-Thru is brought to you by Randall Thor, wedding planner extraordinaire. Grab your sweetie and get ready for your big day when Randall Thor comes to town. You get a wedding, and you get a wedding. Everybody gets a wedding, and all with a dragon stamp of approval. He even provides the music. Don't hesitate. Just grab the closest single person and let Randall Thor plan the perfect wedding for you.
Chapter 9 is called The Wolf Dreams, and the icon is the Dragon Fang.
Perrin can't stop thinking about Gnome, so he goes to talk to Moraine. She's been expecting him. She's avoided talking to him about the wolves because he was so determined to ignore it. But after Gnome, the time has come. Perrin asks if that's how he'll end up, and Moraine tells him she doesn't know. She found a fragment of a book left over from the Age of Legends that spoke of Perrin's situation. Some were totally taken over by the wolf, but there was no indication of how many. She also can't say if avoiding the wolves would help. Mostly the passage talked about dreams. The wolves live partly in this world and partly in a world of dreams, but Moraine can't say any more about it. She doesn't know much about dreaming. Perrin says he won't end up like Gnome, and Moraine says he doesn't make his own choices. Perrin and Matt are both super strong Ta'veren, and the pattern might have a larger purpose for both of them. Perrin asks her for help, and she promises to do what she can to keep him whole, as long as it doesn't affect her mission to thwart the shadow. He asks her if she can shield his dreams like she did for Lan. She tells him, I already have a warder, Perrin. Her lips quirked almost into a smile, and one is all I will have. I'm of the blue Aja, not the green. Perrin tells her that's not what he meant, but her wards are for outside attacks, and his trouble comes from within. She tells him that he has to sleep, but to be careful of his dreams, because that's possible. Back in his room, he tries to make himself uncomfortable so he doesn't sleep too deeply. Perrin finds himself in a dream and tries to wake up, but can't. He hears Hopper telling him to run, but Hopper is dead. Again, the command to run and the warning of danger comes, and Perrin runs. He runs into a man who calls him a peasant and tells him to be gone from his dreams. A strip of shadow comes down from the ceiling, touches the man, and rips his skin off. Perrin runs away, trying to get the scene to change or to wake up, but he can't. He runs into an ornately decorated room where he finds a black-haired, black-eyed, beautiful woman clothed in white and silver looking over a tattered manuscript. He recognizes her, and she yells at him, saying that he'll ruin things he can't even imagine. She does something wonky and disappears, and Perrin turns to find Hopper. Perrin is like, but you're dead. And Hopper's like, run, dumbass. Teeth bared, Hopper leapt for Perrin's throat. Perrin freaks out and wakes up, clutching at his throat, but there is no wound. He's relieved until he feels blood. His face and clothes are covered in splatters of blood from the skinned man. He washes the blood off and, determined not to give in to his dreams, sits on the floor, uncomfortable enough for only a restless, shallow sleep. Rand huddles under a tree, watching a big black dog come after him. The dog charges, and Rand shoots a bar of white light like liquid fire from his hands. The dog is no more, and Rand is grateful it had worked this time. There had been other dogs, and it hadn't always worked. He wanted to hold on to Sedin, but they can track him that way, so he lets it go. He can hear other dogs howling in the night and snarls at them, "Hunt me if you will. I'm no easy meat." He continues on into the night, heading east.
Part of the reason Perrin is a much better friend to Rand, at least in the first few books, is because Perrin and Rand started to change at the same time. Matt's change is a little delayed and does not start until he's healed in the tower. Mm-hmm. And is not really in full effect until he goes through the door for the first time. Perrin is fighting something that he sees as trying to rob him of his humanity.
Mm-hmm.
Rand is very much fighting the pull of Sidin that can rob him of his sanity. And it's not until the encounter with Gnome, Perrin realizes that his humanity and his sanity are the same thing. So it's here that Perrin becomes the first one that empathizes with Rand in a way that no one else can.
Mm-hmm.
I laugh every time when Perrin reacts to the idea of a world of dreams. It does sound a little corny. And if he could only know that he is basically destined to become the most skilled dreamwalker ever, he would not laugh so much. It's just one of the many things that make a reread so much fun.
Mm-hmm. Moraine doesn't really have anything to tell him. She has just the tiniest scrap of information, but it basically amounts to, you might be fine, you might be screwed. We'll just have to wait and see how the pattern chooses to mess with you. Also, you can never sleep again. Nighty-night.
Right?
Oh, you're so helpful. I said,
Perrin's level of desperation is dialed way up here.
Oh, yeah.
And it makes sense given that he just saw what happened to Gnome. But he not only asks Moraine for help after spending every moment of this book trying to prevent her from having a string tied to him. He asks if she can shield his dreams. For him, this is a huge sacrifice. He's willing to give up his freedom and being tied to an Aes Sedai that he's been raised to believe is untrustworthy, all to keep from going mad like Gnome. And it really sucks that Moraine can't offer him any help at all in that area.
Yeah. Moraine tells Perrin, perhaps knowing what Rand is, knowing how strongly Ta'veren he is, I paid too little attention to the other two Ta'veren I found with him. Yes, she has.
Yes, absolutely.
She keeps having that problem. She underestimates both Mat and Perrin until it bites her in the ass, and she is reminded that the pattern has plans for them too, over and over and over again.
So Hopper's back.
Yay!
That's the one thing about this dream sequence that is really cool.
Mm-hmm.
I'm looking forward to see more of him as the story moves forward. I'm not sure who the man was that we see die. Do you?
I think he's just a random dude.
All right. I thought
maybe a random dark friend, but just a random dude.
Okay.
Because if you die in the dream, you die in real life.
Yes. We will have that ad nauseum. Yes, we will. We see Lanfear probably snooping in the tower.
I think so, yeah. It sounds like it was the tower.
So when Hopper pulls Perrin out of the dream, he says that there is danger worse than all the Neverborn. Then, when Perrin wakes, we see that some things that happen in the dream world have an effect in the real world.
Mm-hmm.
We switch to Rand's point of view, being hunted by Darkhounds. Reading this the first time, seeing Rand make the attacking dogs disappear with the power was really cool and exciting. Rereading this scene is really suspenseful. Like, Rand is wielding balefire as if it were nothing.
Yeah.
And he's fighting Darkhounds. Rand has no idea how powerful he's become.
Yeah, absolutely. So, one thing that I thought was cool about this book is that Jordan uses the scenes with Rand to transition in between POVs. Like, we've been in Perrin's head this whole time, and we're going to switch to Egwene in the next chapter as we catch up with the girls and Tar-Valon. We'll see another of these short scenes with Rand when we leave Tar-Valon and switch back to Perrin, so on and so forth. And I just thought that was an excellent literary device and a really clever thing to use Rand this way.
Yeah.
You know? Like, I don't remember reading books that had this many, like, point of view switches. And so using Rand's character and, like, catching up as Rand journeys as a way to switch in between, like, the major point of view, I just thought that was so cool. I really, really like it, and I'd never seen it before.
And I think it's especially important in this book because Rand is not in this book very much at all. So, like, these little tiny snippets are all we get of him in between. So, yeah, it's kind of a way to keep him in the story.
Yeah. I really, really liked it. I thought it was really smart.
Yeah. That's it for chapters 8 and 9 of The Dragon Reborn. Join us next week for chapters 10 and 11, where we catch up with the girls and Matt in Tar Valon.
We hope that you enjoyed this episode of the Wheel of Time Pod-Thru.
We'll see you again next week. Make sure that you rate and subscribe to us on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts. If you could leave us a positive review, it would really help us out. It makes us more visible so more people can find us. You can tweet us at Pod-Thru or email us at wadpodthru@gmail.com. Tell us your thoughts on anything we covered today.
That's WOTPODTHRU@gmail.com, or find our Wheel of Time Pod-Thru channel on YouTube. Thanks, everybody, and we hope the wheel weaves you in our direction again soon.